Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is the big man Boisterous coming to you with some Masters League Magnificence out of the Shakuris Plateau. Up here in the top right hand corner we have heatRoy spawning in as the blue Zerg, and down here in the bottom left hand corner we have Pedro spawning in as his enemy, the red Terran. As this game starts out, I would like to say that I am going at ×2, and that's not really to harass anybody that doesn't like going at ×2. It's just so that I can keep a 15-minute length on my videos, because it's kind of a hassle to have to click through on part 1 and part 2. If you guys really like that, if you guys would really prefer to have two-part videos, then go ahead and post it in the Battle.net threads, and I'll see what you guys like, and I'll accommodate that. But for right now, I'm going to just fast forward through the beginning sections of these games. And we do have heatRoy going for a 15 hatch, which is pretty standard on this map, especially because he scouted and he noticed that Peter was cross spawns from him. And it looks like he's just going to be scouting in with his drone and seeing that there's a orbital commands coming up and a marine that's about to pop out. And this drone, I think, stayed in a bit too long. I think he should have dropped out a bit earlier. We do have the SCV scout going out, and he will see the expansion. And that drone actually just juked that marine pretty well, but it didn't matter because there was a supply depot already up. Did our Zerg player see the double gas? Oh, he didn't. Oh, that is awful. If he had seen the double gas is a pretty good indicator that your Terran's going to start going for some sort of crazy tech play. At this point, I think we could be seeing some sort of cloaked Banshee play. It would be a bit of a delayed cloaked Banshee, but considering the fact that it would be like a 2-base cloaked Banshee play, I would expect him to get both of these geysers and then just go for a lot of cloaked Banshees. But we actually do have a Zergling getting a full scout out on this command center that's already an orbital command down there. So heatRoy should be fairly confident that there isn't going to be coming any sort of really crazy marine timing push. I think he also saw the factory, so he knows that there's not some sort of like 5 racks coming, but there's actually 2 factories going down. So are we going to be seeing like just mass Hellion, some of the pros are actually enjoying doing right now, just mass no upgrade Hellion? But we do have a tech lab going down, so I think we might see blue flame Hellions, as I do slow this game down because we are at that point. So blue flame is a possibility, but it looks like it is going to be siege mode, so we are going to be seeing some sort of siege tank push come out here. I don't think it's going to be a very... Oh, actually, wow, it's triple factory, so I think he's going for mech versus Zerg. I don't like mech versus Zerg. Personally, my preference, whenever I see a Terran player go mech versus Zerg, I kind of sigh, because when you're playing against the Zerg, mech kind of just diminishes your ability to play against the Zerg as well as you can. We do have the Zerg going for fairly standard, just mass expansions right now. He's going for fairly early Evo chamber, but he's not quite upgrading yet. And there is the +1 melee coming out. He's also getting, an averagely timed Baneling nest to prevent any sort of pushes coming out. He's not going for an eco Baneling bust or anything. He is scouting very well with an Overlord. This Overlord is actually going to see 2 of the factories, and I think he knows that a factory is down here, because I'm guessing that he knows that somebody wouldn't move their factory up. I think that what the Zerg could have done there is gotten like 18 lings and then just sent his Overlord over the base, and as these Marines got pulled out, just done a run by. But I don't think he thought that this factory was part of a full wall off, so I can't really doubt or fault him for what he did. We do have, again, there's 3 freaking factories, and 3 factories is again something that I do not agree with at all, because it's really, you don't want to be stuck in a tank line against the Zerg army, especially on a map like this where it's kind of hard to establish a complete tank line, because the Zerg can come by and knock down these rocks, or he can come up here and knock down these rocks, and then he can bypass any sort of tank line you have set up in the middle. And so unless you set up a tank line that's basically just a contain, it's very hard to control the Zerg with straight mech. I prefer like biomech, or like a lot of Marines along with a siege line, just because it allows you so much more control. But the Zerg is actually getting a very late speed I think he might have just completely forgotten speed. Because I don't see any reason for him to get such a late speed, because this is 10 minutes into the game and his speed isn't finished. I mean, most Zergs have their speed by 5 minutes, I think is the average time that speed finishes, and yeah, it's around 5 minutes because you want to get your spawning pool up at 3 minutes. I mean, if you're going for a 15 hatch, then like 6 minute speed is okay, but an 11-minute speed, that's just too far. I mean, you can't rightfully risk that, because if any sort of really strong push came out with those siege tanks, I think the Zerg would have been completely toast, because unspeeded Zerglings are not an effective counter to siege tanks. They really will just they'll just get torn to shreds. And we do have Thors coming out, so this is going to be a very heavy mech play, which I cannot express how much I do not agree with just straight mech play versus Zerg. He's getting pretty good upgrades that he's going to at least keep up with the upgrades of the Zerg, if not eventually outpace them. But the Zerg is actually, he is going for the air upgrades as well as the ground upgrades. He has a second Evo chamber right here, so he's double pumping out upgrades, so I think he is going to stay ahead of the Terran in upgrades. But I do not agree with this mech army, and he's just going to keep going for it. This is kind of crazy at this point. The fact that he's just going for such heavy Thor. He's not even going for really heavy like Hellions or finesse units. He's just going for, the big bang Thor kind of units. He does have 5 Marines, but 5 Marines is essentially nothing to a flock of 7 Mutalisks. And, the real issue with going for such heavy tank forces is that these Mutalisks could have caught these Hellions completely off guard and then just demolished your Hellion forces. And then there goes a third of your army. We do have Banelings coming in. And Banelings are going to demolish these Hellions, actually. I do like this choice out of heatRoy to go for Banelings, despite the heavy mech play. I mean, Banelings and Infestors will absolutely destroy this army, because if you can Neural Parasite these Thors, I mean, just watch how slowly these Hydralisks die to this army. He is going to clean them all up, and he did it pretty cost efficiently, but he lost so many tanks where it's just, I don't think it's really worth it. He needs Marines, really, in my opinion, because if you're up against the Zerg that's going for Mutalisks, Marines are the only things that can really deal with Mutalisks extremely well in the Terran arsenal. Thors are kind of good as a support unit to, force the movement of the Mutalisks, to have them not just swoop in one force, so that your Marines can deal with them more efficiently. But Thors are not the counter to Mutalisks, I would say. It's definitely Marines that are the counter to Mutalisks, and Thors are just there to prevent clumping. Because if Mutalisks get into the back of your base and they're allowed to clump, they will one-shot missile turrets. They will absolutely demolish worker lines. They'll one-shot 3 supply depots at a time. They will just absolutely destroy you. But with a Thor, they can't clump. And we do have a pretty late expansion coming out of Peter, and he actually got his SCV sniped up here, which is a very good life for that Zergling, sniping that SCV. And we do have a push coming out from the Terran. Actually, no, this is just the remnants of that last push getting cleaned up by roaches. And despite how it looks like Zerg came out really far behind because he lost essentially his entire army 3 times in a row, he's actually pretty far ahead. I mean, if we go to the units lost, he's only 2,000 resources behind. Or, well, he's lost 2,000 more resources. But that doesn't matter to him, because he's 2 bases up, and he's probably going to be going for 3 bases up fairly soon. I'd expect him to take this expansion, or this expansion, probably this expansion, just because it's easier to defend from your main.